Hello, everyone. I want to give you a few suggestions about how to add images to your art journal pages if you don't really want to draw or paint something like a portrait or something like that. I am not very good at painting images and that kind of thing. So I like to add images that I find in places. So it's just an easy way to add focal images without being disappointed about how bad my drawing is or whatever. So there's a few things that we can use for focal images. Scrapbook papers. They have some great images and you can find all kinds of things in scrapbook paper. So, you can cut them out, tear them, whatever you want to do. This is kind of a cool little silhouette of a dressmaker's, what do you call it? Dressmaker's dummy? So I'm just going to cut that whole thing out because I kind of like the way the whole thing looks. Don't necessarily want all the other stuff. And these are not my good scissors. Try the other scissors. Those are my kid scissors that are not very sharp. All right, this is a little bit better. All right. So I'm just going to go around that image like that. That a little rounder. And I've got a nice little image to use. You can, you don't necessarily have to do a fussy cut around it. You can tear around them or whatever you want to do. But you can find all kinds of images in scrapbook paper. And you can buy single sheets of scrapbook paper and find images as well. Another thing is wrapping paper. I often find really cool wrapping paper, and it's fun to add that kind of thing. Also, let me just cut out a strip of this cutlery here and take off that part. So there's another bit, and I might even cut out a kitty cat head. Another place to find images is tissue paper. I know I've got some tissue paper that has some images on it, but I couldn't find it. But even patterned paper or colored paper that you can even, on white tissue paper, you can, or even a pastel or a light color tissue paper, you can stamp images on tissue paper. And we will get into that a little bit later too. So let me just get a little bit of that one out, a little bit of this one, those to the side. Joss papers. If you can find Joss papers, often they have images on them, and sometimes they're just patterns, writing, something like that. These are great for adding to your pages. And another place that is wonderful for images is napkins. When you're using napkins for images, you do want to make sure that you take the layers off the napkin. Napkins come in layers. So you want to make sure either 2 or 3 layers. This one only has 2. A lot of napkins have 3 layers. Make sure you take that layer off, because if you try to put glue on that layer, you're not really gluing the napkin with the pattern to your page. So it will come off. But napkins are a great place to find images. And I'm just going to use that little one right there. One thing that you can do to get images off of a napkin without cutting is using a very small, damp paintbrush, just a little bit of water. You want it damp, you don't want it soaking wet. But just put water where you want your image to come away from the rest of the napkin. And I'm not doing this very precisely. You do want to leave a little bit of a border. The water does soak into the napkin and it can go into your image. So make sure you give it quite a bit, enough of a border so that it just comes apart from the rest of the napkin where you've put water. And see, it's just ripping exactly where I brushed the damp brush. And it just comes apart just like that. So then you don't have a harsh edge, you've got a nice little torn edge to add. So now that I've got some things here, I am going to just glue some stuff into my signatures here. I'm going to get my gluing magazine out and some glue and find pages that might want to have some images in there. You know what? I'm going to put that right there. Now you can use gel medium for this. I like to use the glue stick for napkins. Napkins are very fragile when they are wet, and that does include glue. If you get a little bit of glue on the napkins, they will fall apart, just like when you are putting a little bit of moisture around the images to get them out. So be very careful. So what I like to do is I like to put glue on the page and then put the napkin exactly where I want it. After it sets, you can't move it again. You'll rip the napkin. But it does nicely go over the glue and it is good to go. Be very gentle with them. They will rip if you handle them too much. Okay? So let's continue on and see what else we've got. I'm going to put some of these Joss papers on this page. Just going to put them on. And see what happens. I probably will put some paint over these. And this is what I'm talking about, simple steps. You can repeat steps that you enjoy or steps that you need. With all this white space on this page, I'm probably going to want to add some paint on top of this to blend the images in. Let me cut this kind of straight-ish, because I'm going to put it over the crease or the ditch of the book. Not exactly straight, but close enough. Sometimes when you fold an image over, that it comes unglued. Sometimes, not always, but and I thought I'll just do it off center like that, because I think it's a little bit more interesting. And I am going to add these faces on the same page. I usually mix it up and put things on different pages, but this one's going to have a theme, I suppose. See if we can get it on there straight. Here we go. Sure all those little bits are glued down well. And see all the white space? I'll probably come back with some kind of paint, acrylic or watercolor, something to give it some color. Here's my circles, and this tissue paper would be fun. Another fragile paper is tissue paper. I do like to add the glue stick to this. You can just put glue on the page and then put the tissue on to the page, or put that on the edge. Or you can put the glue directly on the tissue paper. Be very careful handling wet tissue paper. It's very fragile. The trick to adding glue to tissue paper without it ripping and stuff is start from the center and go out to the edges. If you try to rub too much of the edges, they bend and rip and distort and glue themselves to each other. Make sure you've got glue on all the edges. And add a little bit of pattern that way. Start from the center, go out to the edges. You're going to get a better coating of glue without too much fuss on your page. Let's see. Oh, this would be cool with this. I do like that, so I'm just going to glue that down. Like that. Got some of the paper on there. And uh-oh, it's upside down. I didn't look ahead of time. And I get it off. I bet the Joss paper's upside down too. Should have checked. Uh-oh. Putting more glue on the image. There's no way that I can get the Joss papers off at this point. They're way too fragile. They're probably mostly dry by now. Oops. But that's okay. I'm going to put it right there. That's okay. because it's probably upside down. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I looked at that one before I did it. Maybe not. So, just a tip, make sure that when you're using signatures that you've got the right side up. Let's see. I've got this triangle tissue paper. I might just put it right there. The thing about tissue paper, when you glue it down, let me get another page. Sorry, didn't mean to bump the camera. You can see what's underneath tissue paper. Tissue paper is very thin. When you get it wet, when you glue it, it becomes a little bit more translucent. See, I just ripped it. And you can actually see what's underneath. Got some wrinkles in there that just adds some texture. But you can kind of see the color underneath, which is one of the fun things about tissue paper. It doesn't cover everything exactly, but it gives you a little something extra. It's kind of fun. All right, I've got a few more little bits here. Actually, let me just glue this down. And I will trim off the excess on the edge after I get it down. You want to make sure you get enough glue on the edges, because the edges are what lift off the paper first. If there's not enough glue, will separate from your base. So I like to make sure I've got quite a bit on the edges mostly. And then I do use a cotton cloth. This is a part of a t-shirt. You can use a washcloth. Cotton works the best, and just make sure you have no air bubbles underneath, that the paper is connecting to the other piece of paper. It's all down there, and then trim it off. Just like that. I've got an image on that one. Let's see here. Let's put the napkin. We can put the wrapping paper on the other side. So I'm going to start from the center of the napkin and work my way out. It will be very fragile when it has glue on it. It's just slightly wet. So be very careful when handling it, and make sure you get it in the right place before you start pressing it down. Got a little wrinkle in it. Try to smooth it from the center out to reduce the amount of wrinkles. It's got a couple little wrinkles in there, but it's pretty good. I'm not going to be too concerned about that. And then this wrapping paper on the other side. So now we've got some images. Let's get that straight. It's a little strange, crooked. Oh, it's just stuck. It's stuck that way. It doesn't want to move. And I didn't get the edges really well. So let me add a little bit more glue. Of course, I don't usually use this washable glue. I usually use the Elmer's Extreme. But for just practicing and messing around, just to see what happens, I didn't want to use any expensive glue. I don't expect this to last very long. I'm expecting it to be very, very messy and kind of ugly, so I didn't want it to be too precious, and I didn't want to spend too much money on glue. That makes it less precious if I'm not worried about wasting my supplies. So that's just adding just a couple more images, and then we will continue on with other steps to put things on top of those. We didn't add much to this one, did we? Anyway, easy ways to add some images that you can find just about anywhere. Thanks for watching.